Journalism, or the yellow press, is a type of journalism that does not report much real news with facts. It uses shocking headlines that catch people's attention to sell more newspapers. Yellow journalism might include exaggerating facts or spreading rumors. Yellow press newspapers have several columns and front-page headlines about different types of news, such as sports and scandals. They use bold layouts, with large illustrations and perhaps color, and stories reported using unnamed sources. The term was often used to talk about some large New York City newspapers around 1900 as they fought to get more readers than the other newspapers. 1. In 1941, Frank Mott said that there were 5 things that made up yellow journalism. 2. Headlines in huge print that were meant to scare people, often of news that wasn't very important, using many pictures or drawings, using fake interviews, headlines that didn't tell the whole truth, pseudoscience, fake science, and false information from people who said they were experts. Full-color parts of the newspaper on Sundays, usually with comic strips, which is now normal in the United States, taking the side of the underdog against the system. Origins: Pulitzer vs. Hearst. Edit. Yellow journalism, cartoon about Spanish-American War of 1898. The newspaper publishers Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst are shown as the Yellow Kid comics character of the time, and both claim ownership of the war. The term came from the American Gilded Age of the 1890s, when new technology made newspapers cheaper. 2 newspaper owners in New York fought to get more readers and sell more newspapers than the other. These were Joseph Pulitzer with the New York World and William Randolph Hearst with the New York Journal. The most important part of this fight was from 1895 to about 1898. When people talk about yellow journalism in history, they are often talking about these years. Both papers were accused of sensationalizing the news, making it seem much more important than it really was, in order to sell more newspapers, although they did serious reporting as well. The New York press used the term "yellow kid journalism" in early 1897 after a then popular comic strip, to talk about the newspapers of Pulitzer and Hearst, which both published versions of it during a circulation war. 3. Irvin Wardman, publisher of the New York Herald, which was not yellow journalism, invented it. 4. Joseph Pulitzer bought the New York World in 1883 after making the St. Louis Post-Dispatch the biggest daily newspaper in that city. Pulitzer tried to make the New York World fun to read, and filled his paper with pictures, games and contests that brought in new readers. Crime stories filled many of the pages, with headlines like "Was he a suicide?" and "Screaming for mercy." 5. Also, Pulitzer only charged readers 2 cents per issue but gave readers 8 and sometimes 12 pages of information. The only other 2-cent paper in the city was never longer than 4 pages. 6. While there were many sensational stories in the New York World, they were by no means the only stories, or even the biggest ones. Pulitzer believed that newspapers were important and had a duty to make society better, and he tried to do this with his newspaper. Just 2 years after Pulitzer took it over, the World sold more copies than any other newspaper in New York. Part of this was because he was connected to the Democratic Party. 7. Older publishers, who were jealous of Pulitzer's success, began saying bad things about the World. They talked about how he had crime stories and stunts but ignored its more serious reporting. Charles Anderson Dana, Charles Dana, editor of the New York Sun, attacked the World and said Pulitzer was deficient in judgment and in staying power. 8. William Randolph Hearst, a mining heir who bought the San Francisco Examiner from his father in 1887, noticed what Pulitzer was doing. Hearst read the World while studying at Harvard University. He decided to try to make the Examiner as bright as Pulitzer's paper. 9. While he was in charge, the Examiner gave 24% of its space to crime, presenting the stories as morality plays, and put adultery and nudity, by 19th-century standards, on the front page. 10. A month after Hearst took over the paper, the Examiner ran this headline about a hotel fire.